Well, we've come into the foyer of the City Varieties and we're going to meet the General Manager, Mr. Peter Sandyman. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Vic. Welcome to the City Varieties.
Thank you very much. What we'd like to do is to go round and have a really good look round today, if that's possible.
Well, let's get started. Come straight on up.
All right, then let's go up the stairs. These are wonderful. There's posters on the wall. There's one there of the good old days. TV's longest running show. How about that? Goldilocks and the Three Bears. There's Danny LaRue over there. And we've come up now to the first floor. I assume this is it,
You're
Peter?
You're panting already.
I know.
And we've a lot more steps to go yet.
Is this the first floor?
Right, we're on the Stalls Landing now.
Stalls Landing.
And just to our left is the Stalls Bar. And then to our right is the entrance into the stalls.
Right, well, can we go that way then?
Should we go in? Oh, just a few more steps there brings us right into the stalls.
Oh, this is absolutely fabulous. There's a feeling here. I mean, you come to a theatre when it's full of people and you get a really fantastic feeling, but to be in a theatre when there's nobody here is something else quite different. OK then, Peter, can you tell us first of all, how long has the Swan Street entrance been used and why was the Hedgerow entrance closed?
Well, the Swan Street entrance actually is the original entrance. It dates back to when the Varieties was opened in 1865. Of course, then it was called Thornton's New Music Hall and Fashionable Lounge. So the entrance has always been there, and that's how the music hall was designed. So you came into the foyer, and then you had that double staircase left and right coming up to the Stalls Landing. Now, as I understand it, the Hedgerow entrance was a comparatively modern invention. I mean, yes, there was a door there, but the canopy that we remember with the blue flashing neons
I can
and
remember
all
that when I was a child, yeah.
I think that was a fairly modern invention, probably early 1950s.
Right, because of neon, of course, wouldn't have been invented prior
That's right.
to that, yeah.
What I understand is that the previous owners, which was the Joseph family, they wanted to have a prominent entrance onto a main thoroughfare, which of course was the Hedgerow.
Yeah.
I'm Bert. Perhaps you've heard of me, Bert. You've had word of me plodding along, happy and strong, living on plates of fresh air. I drift up in fashion, and when I am feeling depressed, I shave from my cuff all the whiskers and fluff, stick my hat on and muddle up west. I'm Burlington 30, I rise at 10:30, then saunter along like a song. I walk down the Strand with my gloves on my hands, then I walk down again with them on. I'm all airs and places, correct easy paces. So long without food, I forgot where my place is. I'm Bert. Bert, I haven't a shirt, but my people are well off, you know. Nearly everyone knows me from Mr. Lord Rosebery. I'm Burlington 30 from Bow.
All these beautiful little chandelier side lights. And I think we're going to walk up on... Are we going to walk up onto the stage?
Yeah, but you can see straight away we're set up for the good old days, because we're right in the good old days season, and we do two of those a year. We do one in the spring, which is 3 weekends, and then we do another in the autumn, 4 weekends. So we've got all the original stuff from the BBC.
Oh, these are from the BBC
Oh,
days?
yes, this is the original good old days.
Good, good.
As is the scenery. On stage.
Right.
So we're all set up, as I say, for our good old days season. And what we do here, we take some seats out, or we put the rostra on top of row A to disguise it, and it brings the stage out. And on the far side there, we put the chairman's desk with the chairman, of course.
And the chairman nowadays is
Johnny Dennis.
Johnny Dennis. And who have we got on, or who have you had on this up to now? This time?
Up to now, we had Ray Allen and Lord Charles our first week.
Yeah.
We've just had Johnny Casson, and this weekend we're going to be having Keith Harris, and then our final weekend with Orville, of course, yes.
Right.
And our final weekend we're going to have Paul Daniels, and of course, in addition to all these sort of tops of the bills, we have 4 supporting acts. We have dancers from the SLP College in Garforth, we have our chairman, and we have a trio in the pit.
As a matter of fact, the next is a short recitation written by a very tall man with a long mustache curled at both ends. You see, once there was a desert, and in it there were 3 trees. There, and there. And a pool of water there. A little antelope trips across the desert and begins drinking at the pool of water there, surrounded by the 3 trees there, and there. A lion's roar is heard in the distance. But the little antelope just goes on drinking at the pool of water there, surrounded by the 3 trees there, and there. The lion's roar is heard nearer. And with a crash, he bounds to the desert. The little antelope, still drinking at the pool of water there, surrounded by the 3 trees there, and there, just turns his head, then scampers away to safety. The lion, cheated of his prey, uses bad language and says, then goes back to the bosom of his family. Of course, the 3 trees are still there, and there, and the pool of water there, and there is silence once more in the desert. There.
Now then, we're actually on the stage of the City Varieties in Leeds, and looking out into the auditorium, the first thing that really strikes you is the most magnificent chandelier in the ceiling. It's absolute. How long has that been there, Peter?
Do you know, I'm not sure.
Right.
I'm not sure. I mean, I've been coming to Leeds... Sorry, I've not been coming to Leeds. I've been in Leeds for 26 years, and that's always been there.
Oh, right.
And I wonder if that was done when it went from gas lighting to electric. Because they all look fairly old, including the small...
Yes, I should have mentioned that. There's 8 small chandeliers as well to
right.
either side of the main chandelier.
And in fact, when you look back on old photographs, it's always been the 8 little ones and the main chandelier. So I would guess it's been here for a good number of years.
A long time.
A preacher went out hunting. It was on one Sunday morn. Of course, it was against his religion, but he took his gun along. He shot himself some very fine quail and one small measly hare. And on his way returning home, he met a great big grizzly bear. The bear marched out in the middle of the road, and it walked to the coon, you see. And then the coon got so excited that he climbed up a persimmon tree. The bear marched round upon the ground, and the coon climbed out on a limb. Then he raised his eyes unto the Lord in the skies, and these words did say to him, oh, Lord, didn't you deliver Daniel from the lion's den? Oh, so deliver Jonah from the tummy of the whale then. Free Hebrew children from the fiery furnace, so the good book so declare. Now, Lordy, if you can't help me, for goodness sake, don't you help that bear. Not nice bear. Now. Good, Mr. Bear. Now, Mr. Bear, now. Suppose I come down there to you from away up here and let you have one good, nice, juicy bite. What would you go away home and be good? I guess I'll stay right here where I am. Oh, Lord, didn't you deliver Daniel from the lion's den? Oh, no, deliver Jonah from the tummy of the whale then. Free Hebrew children from the fiery furnace, so the good book should declare. Now, Lordy, if you can't help me, for goodness sake, don't you help that bear. Now, just give me my hat, my coat, and my gloves, will you? Thank you.
So how long have you been manager here, Peter?
Oh, I've been here now for just over 16 years.
So you're well used to the place then.
Oh, yes.
And have you got a favourite act? You know,
I daren't.
You daren't? Well, no, of course not, no.
To be honest with you, it would be very, very difficult to choose a favourite act, because is it from my entertainment point of view, or is it from my hat as a manager saying, this person earned us the most money?
Yeah.
And of course, I wouldn't want to publicise that, because then they might want more money. No, I wouldn't, because they do become very close friends, a lot of these acts, because we see them over and over again. And I wouldn't like to choose.
Yeah. There's a fabulous feeling of being here. One of the things that I've noticed, you've got a lot of little discs on the ceiling. What are those little discs for up there?
Well, I think they were courtesy of the BBC when they used to drop things or support things, either lighting or trapeze acts, or there is the vertical pole, where, you know, that's a circus act where you can climb up this pole and turn round and come back down again and control your descent.
And when you think about it, you know, I can remember seeing those on the good old days, but it's not all that large, is it? And I don't think I'd fancy having a go at it.
I tell you what, though, it's not that large and it's not that high. But if you come to the edge of the stage here, we're about 4'6" off the floor, which isn't a lot, but it's not comfortable.
No, if you fall down, you hurt yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, if I tell you that one of the acts that we use quite often is Richard Gauntlet, who is a unicyclist, and he has a 4'6" unicycle. So now his bottom, or his saddle, is roughly level with my eyes.
Yeah.
So now, if you add his weight, or height rather, onto that, he is going to be about 13, 14 feet off the deck.
Off the deck.
And he's got this lovely little trick where he goes over to the box on his unicycle and tries to help himself to their sweets, which he can do. The problem with that is, when he does that, his tyre, his wheel, is about 8 inches from the edge of the stage. Not something I'd like to do.
So he's got to have perfect balance.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And if you look up, you mentioned the holes.
Yeah.
The two which are nearest to us, in the middle of the small chandeliers, we use those to suspend aerial acts from. We've had cloud swing acts, we've had silks. In fact, you've probably seen the silk act that we've used several times. Her name's Melissa Moran, and the BBC do these identities before a lot of their programmes. Like, they have the people in the wheelchairs dancing, and they have the dancing, I think, from the Tower, Blackpool.
Right.
And they have 3 people on red silks tumbling down.
And they've been here?
The middle one.
The middle one.
Is Melissa Moran, and she has been here.
Excellent. I always think that's a really dangerous thing to do, actually. When I watch it, I think, goodness gracious, you know.
Well, what we like about the cloud swing is that they do various contortions within the rope, and then they end up swinging back and forth. But what the audience hasn't noticed, and of course I shouldn't be telling you this because everyone's going to be looking for it next time, is that they wrap the rope around their ankles, and on the final swing they dive forward head first, and they're suspended by their ankles. Causes a great consternation in the stalls.
I bet everyone goes...
I mean, in the days of the good old days, I think the first time they did a trapeze act, they actually tensioned a safety net. And if you look just across to the right there, just under that light, there's a little cream eye sticking out.
Yes.
And there's one a bit further back.
Yes.
And those are repeated on the left-hand side.
Yes, I see
and
those.
then under the circle, straight in front of us, there is a scaffold bar, and we can tension a safety net onto those points, and then there are 2 points left and right onto stage, and we can do all. Of course, you can do that for television, where you're recording, right, stop the recording, dismantle the safety net, but you can't do that live show. So we take other precautions.
Yeah.
Kelly and his sweetheart, what a very pleasant smile. Spent upon a holiday, they went from Mona's Isle. They landed safe in London, but alas, it's sad to say, poor Kelly lost his little girl up Piccadilly way. She searched for him in vain, and then, of course, began to fret. And this is the appeal she made to everyone she met. Has anybody here seen Kelly? K-double-L-Y. Has anybody here seen Kelly? Find him if you can. He's a man
One of the things I've noticed here, and maybe you could tell our listeners, if I put a marble at the top of the stage, it would roll straight down because there seems to be an incline on the stage. What's that?
Yes, the stage is in fact raked. And
Raked.
As I understand it, it's because as you walk upstage, the people in the stalls, especially on the front rows, are going to see less of you. Probably to the point that when you're at the back of the stage, they're only going to see from your knee upwards. So what you do, you raise the back up, so hopefully they can see the whole of your body.
Excellent.
But the rake is not without problems. We have had one or two problems here. I can remember just about 2 years ago, we were doing our Silver Stars contest, and that is an amateur contest for people aged 60 and over. And as one act walked off, the compere walked on, and we had a boom stand mic centre stage. But the vibration had happened to cause the arm of the boom stand to swing around. And of course it got so far, and it was now precariously dangling over the pit, and as soon as it got to that point over the pit, it overbalanced, crashed down on the drum kit, and the drummer wasn't paying attention. He looked up with amazement and saw the compere, and the compere must have been terribly frightened because it wasn't me, nothing to do with me, you know. And I think he was going to get
Give him
a punch or something. Yeah. And the other time, I can remember, we had one of these magicians on stage, and he had one of these cabinets where his assistant had to pop in, and then he would close the door, and he went off to get the steel sheets that he's going to subdivide the cabinet with. As he walked off, he wasn't aware, but the cabinet rolled. Not very nice for the girl inside, but it did roll to the edge of the stage and fall off into the stalls. It did, yes. With her in it.
Oh my goodness.
I hate those chaps what talks about the things what they likes to drink, such as tea and coffee, cow and milk. Why are such things I never think? I'm plain in me habits and I'm plain in me food, and what I say is this, that the man what drinks such rubbish with his meals, well, I always gives him a miss. Now for breakfast I never think of having tea, I likes me half a pint of ale. For dinner I likes a little bit of meat and half a pint of ale. For tea I likes a little bit of fish and half a pint of ale. And for supper I likes a crust of bread and cheese and a pint and a half of ale.
Right, well, we've touched on the good old days. Can we just go back to the good old days? Because obviously that's one of the things that the City Varieties are famous for. All this, as you say, is the good old days stuff from the BBC.
It is indeed,
right.
Yeah.
This is where the orchestra would be, I suppose.
Yes, we've actually allowed for an orchestra pit here for 3 people. We have piano, bass and drums. When the BBC did it, they had, I think, an orchestra of about 14 members. So, of course, that pushed the walkway out a lot further. And Leonard Sachs was, in fact, between the first 2 pillars. That was okay for them because they gave the tickets away. You had to get dressed up to get a ticket. You had to be on a waiting list, I think, for a very, very long time. And the tickets were free. We now charge for the seats. So we don't put the walkway as far out, because if we did, the people in the circle wouldn't see.
Yeah. Well, of course, a lot of people don't know Leonard Sachs was actually an actor, wasn't he? He'd been in 1 or 2 films,
yes.
And then he just got onto this. I mean, he was absolutely... I mean, where he got the words from, I don't know.
Well, in fact, this was a pilot in 1953. Barney Colahan, who was a staff producer with BBC in North in Manchester, was asked to produce a pilot about music hall. And I think it involved people like Derek Geiler, and Don Gemmell was the chairman. It was so successful, they asked Barney to do a series. There was only going to be 1 series. And they approached Don Gemmell, and he wasn't available. And a young up-and-coming actor called Leonard Sachs filled the shoes of chairman.
Right.
And of course, went on to do
That's it.
30 years.
30 years, yeah. And then, of course, his son was Manuel in Fawlty Towers.
I understand so,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
When I was out of work for Mrs. Next so much you see, I went down to the station to see if I'd make a tea. They dressed me in this uniform and then they said to me, "You're PC 49. The first day I came out, the kids threw mud and spoiled me clothes. A dozen navvies looked at me, then punched me on the nose. I don't suppose Jack Johnson ever stopped so many blows as PC 49. PC 49. Anyone can have this little job of mine. They threw me in some melted tar till I was nearly dead. Then got a big steamroller which they ran across my head. When I got back, the sergeant cried, "Who are you?" So I said, "I'm PC 49.
We've come off the stage now. We're in the wings. We're giving it its proper theatrical name. And it's not what you would probably expect, because it's all painted black. There are thousands of miles of wire, and it's totally different. Looking up, you can see right up into the flies. I've not used these expressions for years. It sounds as though I know what I'm talking about. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go and have a look at a dressing room, one of the stars' dressing rooms.
We are indeed. But just before we leave the wings, I mean, the wings here are virtually non-existent because the theatre is so narrow. We've got here about 8 feet of wings either side of the stage. And in fact, if you exit stage right, there is no crossover. So if we're using the full stage, there's no crossover, and people have made the mistake occasionally, and they have been stuck over there for
They can't
the
get
whole
off
of the
until-
second half,
yeah.
or whatever. And there we
One
go.
one of the things I didn't ask you while we were on the stage, is there a trapdoor on the stage?
Well, there is a trapdoor that we created, but that's more of an access point to a storage area under stage. It's not the star trap.
Not the star trap, no.
Because the stage is only about 4'6" high, and because we're built on top of a pub, we'd be ending up going through the pub
Right,
below.
yes, of course. You don't think of things like that. So now we're going down some stairs here.
Go to the star dressing room.
We'll go to the star dressing room. Here
I've
we
just
are.
switched the lights on for your listeners to see.
So we've got mirrors with lights round. It's the typical what everybody would associate with being a dressing room. Lights round the mirrors. There's a little wardrobe effect in the corner. Chairs, rubbish bin. There's a big mirror here. Oh my goodness.
Don't forget the bat in the corner, because that's the air conditioning.
So name some of the people who have been in here, can
Oh
you?
dear me, it's
Danny LaRue.
Danny LaRue, Ray Allen, Johnny Casson. Oh dear.
Rob Wilton.
I'm sure they have.
Yeah.
But I mean, basically, anyone who was anything in variety has appeared here. They've
Here,
probably
yeah.
done it on the way up or the way down, or they've been here for the good old days.
Yeah.
Of course, we say it's the star dressing room, but when they did the good old days, they wouldn't have referred to it as the star dressing room because they had lots of names
Lots of stars
on the same bill.
Yeah. It would have been very difficult for Danny LaRue being in here, I should think,
Oh
with all
my
his
goodness.
dresses.
When we've had Danny here, Danny's had this room, and then just outside is the area we came through is the green room, which is like the artist's rest room. They get ready there to go on. They just wait to go on there. All his frocks have been out there. And in fact, there's a tale about that because we have a resident amateur group called the Potato Room Players.
Yes, I have seen those,
Well,
actually.
I started that with a friend in 1988.
Oh, right.
And we did La Cage aux Folles. We've done it several times, and one of the times we did it was Danny LaRue. Now, the dressing room we're in, when we did it with a totally amateur cast, there were 3 cast members in here. When we did it with Danny, as I've just suggested, Danny was in here on his own, so we've now displaced 2 cast members. The green room was full of his costumes, so that's displaced the quick change area for the cast. Do you know what we did? We got permission to put a porter cabin on a scaffold bridge over Swan Street.
Really?
And The tale behind that is it connected straight into the dock door.
Right.
So, of course, every time the chorus left the stage, they went straight through the dock door into this 20-foot by 10-foot porter cabin. And we went through it all, and it was very interesting because we got prices for the porter cabin. And I think something silly, it cost something like £35 a week to hire a porter cabin. But you had to do it for a minimum of 4 weeks. So it's £140 plus VAT. And I thought that was extremely reasonable.
Yeah, it is cheap. Isn't it?
But the City Varieties Music Hall is in a pedestrianised area. We could only do this work on a Sunday. So the scaffolding had to be delivered on a Sunday and erected on a Sunday. The crane to lift the porter cabin up on a Sunday. The total bill, in fact, then went to £2,500.
Yeah.
But it was the best dressing room that we've never had.
Find the military man who's really worthy of the name, who's ever behind a hand when duty's to be done. He's the fellow that you can trust to try and win the game, whatever the prize, waiting to be won. By jingo, don't the girls know that as well as I do? Isn't the fact a mate's made out every day? When you see them strolling by a soldier's side, who could ever be more proud than they? Jolly good luck to the girls who love the soldiers. Girls, have you been warned? You know we military men always do our duty everywhere. Jolly good luck to the girls who love the soldiers. Real good boys are we. Girls, if you'd like to love a soldier, you can all love me.
So we've been in the dressing room. Now we're going up some more stairs here. No, I've got used to it now.
Well, it's okay, you'll get oxygen mask. just watch your head because the ceiling gets a bit low.
We're passing another dressing room there, and there's the Empire dressing room.
And now here, you've got to step up to go to the pass door, and there's a really nasty door closer, so duck your head.
Right, okay. Here we go. Now we're actually above the stage now, looking down. See all the lights on the crossbars. We're going through the pass door, and we're now coming into the circle, and here we have a selection of boxes, which I think are absolutely fabulous. Can we just go in here? Just want to... Right, I'm just going to have a sit down.
Have the steps got to you then?
Yes, they have. Well, now, this is so peculiar because I came here a couple of years ago to a pantomime, and we sat in this box, and they threw some foam rubber balls at us.
Oh, yeah, foam rocks, yes. Well,
Foam rocks,
We
yeah.
always engineer a rock fight in our pantomime. We started this many years ago, and then one year we thought, oh, we've had enough of this. We should do something different. And we didn't do the rock fight. Oh, we had so many complaints.
I'm not surprised.
Oh, you didn't do the rock fight. And then when people were booking for the following year, they were saying, well, are you going to do the rock fight this year? We said yes,
Yeah.
it's back in, and we've never
stopped it.
never
Oh,
stopped
it was great fun, and I can't remember who was in the pantomime, and I can't even remember what the pantomime was, but they kept saying, "Are you all right in the ashtrays up there?" You know, we thought that was
Yeah.
quite funny. Sometimes.
Well, what we like about our pantomimes, because we think that we price them so that they are accessible, and also very importantly, we look at the timing of it. We run it for a maximum of 2 hours. That includes the interval. And what we find with that is it's a very short, sharp panto, very strong storyline. The kids enjoy it. And we also make a point of trying to pick music that they know.
Yeah.
And I do go round visiting other pantos in the season, and it's interesting. I've been to several now where you get the boy and the girl singing, and that is a cue for the toilet run.
Yes. Yeah.
20 children or more will then make their way to the toilet.
Yeah, because it only wants one to do it, doesn't it?
That's
and then
right.
they'll all do it.
And I was in one theatre, it was a sort of sprung wooden floor. The noise that made, it was like a herd of elephants, it really was. But here, that doesn't happen.
No.
You know, it just doesn't happen. The kids stay, they sing along with the songs, and they really do seem to enjoy it.
Yeah. Yes, I think that's much better, and it's much better to get people going away thinking, oh, I wish it was a bit longer, than going away and thinking, oh, that was far too long.
I've lost my pal, he's the best in all the town, but don't you think him dead because he ain't? But since he's wed, he has had to knuckle down. It's enough to vex the temper of a saint. He's a brewer's drayman with a leg of mutton fist and as strong as a bullock or an horse. Yet in her hands he's like a little kid. Oh, I wish that I could get him a divorce. Well, it's a great big shame, and if she belonged to me, I'd let her know who's who. A nagging at a fella what is 6'3", and her only 4'2". They hadn't been married not a month nor more, when underneath her thumb goes Jim. How isn't it a pity as the likes of her should cut upon the likes of him?
One of the things that I'm just looking at now is looking down to this theatre. There are two, maybe three very prominent colours: gold, red plush, and very delicate green on the side of the upper circle. This is really a traditional theatre, isn't it?
It is. I'm not sure though about the red flock wallpaper. I mean, I remember doing a travel programme for, I think it was Anglia Television, and I was really caught on the hop when the interviewer finished the little interview and said, well, thank you, Peter, and just looking at this flock wallpaper, I just wonder how many Indian restaurants it's launched. Thank you, bye-bye.
Really? How rude.
So,
Well.
yes, I think the flock wallpaper is maybe not a sort of an original feature, but I have to say it has lasted a good many years.
Well, it looks nice anyway.
But we hope that in a future refurbishment we will go back to a very exciting scheme. Certainly at the top of the back of the upper circle, we had a chunk of paint come off the cornice, and it was like 10 or more layers of paint. But what it revealed on the cornice is, I feel, gold leaf. So I can imagine this to be a much more sumptuous sort of place.
Now we've come up into the upper circle. There are 3 rows in the upper circle, and you still get a very good view of the stage from here. We're still with Peter, and we're talking about the 4 steps here. What are these steps, Peter?
Well, this is one of the old standing areas. And I understand when this place opened in 1865, it had a capacity of 2,000.
Really?
600 of them were up here on this level. We now only accommodate in total 531.
Goodness gracious.
One of the ways we think that they got so many people up here was if we go down to this side row.
Yeah.
I'll just take the rope off.
Right.
Now there's a bench seat at the front.
Yep.
So people used to sit on this bench seat and then rest their arms on the rester rail. The second row would stand on the step on which you're on.
Yeah.
And they'd literally just stand up and watch the show at an angle. Not very comfortable. But if you look behind you, there's a black painted bench,
Yeah.
which is right on the back wall. Now, if you sit there, you're not going to... Well, you will see something. What you'll see is this person's backside.
That's right.
So what they used to do was, in fact, stand on that bench.
Right. Hang on, I'm going to do this.
You may do that, but you won't do the next bit of it. Are you getting up there, then?
Just about.
Right, now the next bit... I'll come up there and join you.
Okay, then.
Okay. Now, what you had to do, then, was to lean forward
Oh.
and put your hand
Really?
on this rail, which is about 18 inches above the rest of rail, and you did that for up to 2 hours.
Oh no, I don't think I'll take that chance. No, I'll get down. I don't think that would have been a very comfortable way to watch the show.
Yes, but the thing is, the difference is that back in those days, what did you have? You had music halls, theatre, pubs.
Yeah,
Where else was your entertainment? That probably was it.
that was it, yeah.
Now, with so many things that we can do.
Yeah.
We can
Television.
listen to web broadcasts and things
Exactly,
like
yeah. From Creative FM. I'm just going to mention that we're really close to one of these small chandeliers now, and they're just absolutely lovely. And that large chandelier is still giving thousands of facets of light off it. It's absolutely a fabulous piece of...
Well, when I first came here 16 years ago, what we used to do with that, I used to winch it in. We used to put a plastic sheet under it, and we bought several cans of proprietary chandelier cleaner at enormous expense.
You sound like Leonard Sachs.
And it didn't do the job.
Really?
So do you know what our cleaners do now? When we clean that, we drop it in, we put the plastic sheet on, and they take every strand of crystal off. They have a bowl of hot water with about tuppence worth
Of washing
of
up
fairy
with-
liquid.
Yeah, fairy liquid. And it works wonders.
Dabble it in that, and then we have another bowl of water with a little bit of Dolly Blue.
Really? Can you still buy Dolly Blue?
We still manage to get a little bit.
Well, very
and we
good.
do a little rinse out in Dolly Blue, and it adds to the sparkle. And anyone who's got a chandelier, that's the cheapest and most effective way of doing it.
Right.
And you just then, once you've rinsed it, just let the pieces dry on a soft cloth.
Whenever I see a chandelier like that, it reminds me of Del Boy and Rodney. And
Oh,
Only
yes.
Fools and Horses.
Oh, that was a lovely
It
moment.
was a fabulous one.
Strolling so happy down Bethnal Green, this gay youth you might have seen. Tompkins and I with his girl between, oh, what a surprise. I praised the Conservatives frank and free. Tompkins got angry so speedily, all in a moment he handed to me two lovely black eyes, two lovely black eyes. Oh, what a surprise! Only for telling a man he was wrong, two lovely black eyes. Next time I argued, I thought it best leave the Conservative side to rest. The merits of Liberals I freely pressed, when oh, what a surprise. The chap I had met was a Tory true, nothing the Liberals' rights could do. This was my share of that argument too. Two lovely black eyes, two lovely black eyes. Oh, what a surprise! Only for telling a man he was wrong, two lovely black eyes.
Well, we've come into the Circle Bar now. I've been in this Circle Bar many, many times, but I've never been able to do what I'm doing now, which is walking down here without having to bump into people. One of the things that I noticed straight away when I came in is this fabulous lighting over the bar. And I don't think there's one or two the same, but nearly all the glass bowls are different. Is that done purposely, Peter?
Yes.
Right.
Now, the previous owners, when they refurbished the Circle Bar, they put this feature in, this sort of gantry with all the lights and different shades. And it's marvellous that somebody should have the idea to do that. In fact, all the wall lights, all the wall brackets have different shades on them.
You know, I've just noticed that. Yes, they do. Yeah.
And of course, whenever you do that, when we do it at home, we've got this thing that is all got to match. So, all right, at home it's not too bad, but when you're doing a commercial building, you get all these in, you buy a few spares, and then about 5 years later, when you've broken all your spares, or you've used them all up, you go back and say, oh, we don't make that one anymore. So you have to change the whole lot again. Now, if you do it this way, if we break one of these, we can go down to a flea market and pick one up for 50p or
That's
something.
right, yeah.
And it does actually look very interesting.
Yeah. The other thing is, I'm just standing now in front of one of the biggest grandfather clocks I've ever seen. Is it called a grandfather clock?
It is a grandfather clock.
grandfather.
It has several chimes on it, including Westminster and Whittington, so we can change the chime. It's a lovely piece of equipment and a delightful chime.
It is
and
beautiful.
if we stay here long enough, you might just get a little chime out of it.
I'm sure we will, and that'll be really good to hear. Now, the other thing that I'm just going to mention is around the walls of this bar are just literally hundreds of photographs of stars past and present. Now, I can identify some on this one. There's Jimmy Cricket, and there's Charlie Williams and Ken Goodwin. Lonnie Donegan's there. Ted Rogers, Larry Grayson. Now, there's the North Country comedian in the top there with the beard. Jethro, excellent comedian. But if we move round a little bit, we've got pictures of Tommy Trinder, Stanley Holloway, George Formby, and those were about the only ones that I could identify. What about you, Peter?
Oh, I think you identified Arthur Haynes correctly, and of course there's Huey Green, Frankie Howard. I'm sure I'll catch you out on one of them over there, which where we'll wander across.
Go on, then.
The one in the middle, of course, of that display frame is
It's
Frankie
Frankie
Vaughan.
Abelson.
That's right,
Yes,
Frankie
yeah,
Abelson.
yeah.
And just to the right of him is a very, very young
Bruce
Forsyth.
Goodness
But
gracious.
let's see if I can get you to identify this one. Now then, who do you think that is?
Is it Dick Van Dyke?
It's not Dick Van Dyke.
No. Jimmy Tarbuck?
Did you peek?
No.
You're spot on.
Really?
That's a very young
Right.
Jimmy
It
Tarbuck.
does very much look like Dick Van Dyke, though. But yeah, Jimmy Tarbuck. Goodness gracious, he's young there. That must have been pre-London Palladium days, I think.
I think it was.
I'm a naughty Victorian lady, full of fire and desire. I live amidst antimacassars and hassocks and pictures of generals about to expire. I'm here in an era much queerer than any since primitive races, all full of repressions, confessions, and stuffed birds in cases. But though I look pure and demure, don't imagine I'm slow. Oh no, oh no. I will have me fling, and I've learnt everything that a lady should know. A naughty Victorian lady, so indiscreet. I don't think I'm dated, because I'm created through memories bitter and sweet. My mother's advice I'm continually scorning. I romp in the woods until 5 in the morning and play with the gypsies in spite of the warning. Ooh, those naughty Victorian days. I always have young men around me of repute in pursuit. I'm so much admired, I get very tired of lovers continually pressing their suit. At night, very sprightly and brightly the gardens at Chelsea I favour. Each time that a fairy light fades, I get braver and braver. But should a young beau be too slow for my frolic and fun, his fate I decide, for I'm not satisfied till a beau is undone. A naughty Victorian lady, so indiscreet, cutting such capers that young men have vapours and tear off their stage in the street. I made some wax fruit which I carefully painted. With this kind of work I was not well acquainted. It was so like the vicar the parlourmaid fainted. Ooh, those naughty Victorian days. Naughty Victorian ladies, so indiscreet. Oh, what the gala each night in the parlour. Just look at the state of the suite. Today the old sofa away has been carried. So many young men on the horsehair have tarried. It was through that old sofa that mother got married. Ooh, those naughty Victorian days.
What I'm going to ask you, Peter, now is, did this theatre close in the war?
To the best of my knowledge, it didn't, because we claim to be the oldest music hall in the UK in continual use. It never, as far as I'm aware, closed. It never became a cinema or a wine store or something like that, or a carpet warehouse. It's always been a place of live entertainment.
I know once we found on the internet that they actually put wrestling on at one time.
Oh, that's news to me.
Didn't you know that?
I didn't know
right,
that, no.
Yeah, it didn't last very long, but they did put wrestling on for a very short space of time, many, many years ago.
Well, I think the interesting bit of the history really is that there was this sort of dual standard. During the reign of the sort of good old days, nationally and internationally, people knew this as the home of the good old days. But locally, people knew it as the home of striptease,
Yes.
which went on to, I think, about the early to mid-60s, when the previous management decided that they were going to go to family shows.
Yeah. Well, I can remember, I think probably the very first time I was ever born here as a child, they were something like that. There weren't actually ladies taking their clothes off, but they were tableau. And the curtains would close and the announcer would say, now we're going to see Salome in all her beauty. And the curtains would open and there was girls standing there with fans and they just stood there and then the curtains closed and they did the next one.
This is correct, because they weren't in fact allowed to move. They had
is
to,
that what it was for?
Yes.
Oh,
Under the Lord Chamberlain.
Right.
They had to adopt statuesque poses because they weren't allowed to move.
Right.
And I understand there was a tale that they were going to relax the laws, and one of the theatres in the country jumped the gun and announced that they were going to have Britain's first moving nudes. And of course they were packed to the gills. And what happens, the curtain opened and there was this statuesque nude on a podium, or on a truck in fact. Stage manager came on and pulled the truck across the stage.
So they moved. Who owns the building? I mean, you don't own it yourself.
I don't own it,
No.
no. It's actually owned by the Leeds Grand Theatre and Opera House Limited, and that's an arm's length company of the City Council, Leeds City Council.
Right, I see. Now, we're going to talk about money because funds are desperately needed, aren't they?
Well, what it is, we get a revenue grant through the Grand Theatre Company every year from Leeds City Council, but we want to put a bid in the summer of next year to the Heritage Lottery Fund for a project costing approximately £4 million. And what we're going to need, we're going to have to find some partnership funding. Now, the Friends of the Varieties are busy raising money, as is our amateur group, the Potato Room Players, but we will need to find probably about £2 million. Now, I'm sure some of that will come from Leeds City Council, but we will still have to contribute a fair chunk ourselves. So if anyone is wanting to name something, donate or whatever, we can come to some sort of arrangement.
Well, if ever I'm lucky enough to win the lottery, I will definitely put something in your coffers. Now, the funds are needed, obviously, because of one or two different reasons, but one of them, of course, is the Disability Act.
Yes. I mean, our bid to the Heritage Lottery Fund will be for the restoration and refurbishment of the varieties, but separately to that, if we're going to close for a period of time, which we would need to do, we want to address the disabled access, which is woefully inadequate at the moment. And there are plans to install a lift to get this access, and we would apply to other bodies to get funding for that.
Yeah, good. Now, one of the other things that I've noticed when I've received, because I receive my little leaflet every so often about what's coming on, the different styles of shows that you put on there. You've got pop groups and you do pantos, you still do the good old days, and you have people like Richard Digance and Ken Dodd, and this is real family entertainment still.
Yes, I mean, we do put on here shows that we feel people want to see. We've sometimes had a little run-in with the odd organisation because what we've been told is what we do here is not art. What we do here is entertainment. And in some respects, I'm quite pleased at that because I feel we're putting on what the ordinary person in the street wants to see and hear. And I think that's reflected in our very good audiences here. And somebody has to put on, shall we say, ordinary shows that you can just come out and enjoy without going home at the end of the night thinking, What was that all about?
Yeah, well, you do that when you go out of some theatres, I must admit. One of the things I'm going to pick up on that you mentioned when we were outside in the Circle Bar, in the Circle, that you were one of the organisers of the Potato Room Players.
Yes, back in 1988, when I first started running the Varieties, we found it very difficult to attract amateur groups because they're fairly well catered for at the Civic Theatre, so they all tend to gravitate there. Or they go to the Grand, where they're a big society and they need a big stage. So we just couldn't attract them. So I sort of put my Mickey Rooney hat on, and I got together with a friend, Stuart Wolfe, and I said, do you know what we can do? We can put on a show. Get a company together and put on a show. And that's what we did. And it was only going to be a one-off. It was Lock Up Your Daughters.
Right. Yeah.
Because that was been one of my favourites. I saw that back in the 60s. It must have been something like 62. It was a 10th anniversary production at the Mermaid Theatre in Puddle Dock.
Right.
And I laughed myself silly, tears rolling down my face. And that's what we did. That was our first production.
Right.
And here we are, all these years later, so many more productions under our belt. And the Potato Room Players still going strong.
Still going strong. Well, I must admit, I've come to see them in La Cage aux Folles.
Yes.
Absolutely. If La Cage aux Folles comes on, folks, then book straight away, because it always gets full, doesn't it, for that particular...
It certainly does.
Yeah.
It's bizarre, really, because it's a show that the amateurs were very lucky. All amateur groups in the country were lucky to get, because it started life in the UK in London, and I think at the height of the AIDS scare. We're just going to listen. That was the half-hour chime. I've started, so I'll finish. I think it was possibly at the height of the AIDS scare. It closed in London, and it very quickly became available to amateur groups, and they snapped it up. And here they had a show which hadn't been done to death in London, hadn't done a national tour, and it was a show that lots of people actually wanted to see because they all knew the music. They may not have known the storyline.
That's right, yeah.
And it's interesting how you explain the storyline to people, because I think if you did, you probably wouldn't get them in.
No. I think a lot of people will know the La Cage aux Folles story is actually on the film with Robin Williams and Gene Hackman, of all people, as the birdcage.
Yes.
And actually Gene Hackman drags up at the end, which is really funny because you don't think of Gene Hackman being in drag, you know.
Indeed.
But it's a fabulous musical, and one of the songs is I Am What I Am, and I think people might just cotton on to that particular song because I think Shirley Bassey's recorded that among others, you know. Okay, then, one of the other questions I'd like to ask you is the theatre haunted?
Oh, yes. We have several ghosts. I've never come across one myself, although I have to admit to feeling very uncomfortable here if I'm in the Varieties on my own.
Really?
At night, even with all the lights on. Oh, yes. At the end of my shift at the Grand Theatre, have to go and switch the lights off, and I'd be in total darkness, and I'd make my way backstage in total darkness, and it never bothered me. Here, yes, I get the jitters.
Just a bit.
And I've had a couple of incidents which have spooked me at the time, but when I've calmed down, I've realised they had a rational explanation.
Yeah. I probably should have asked you this way back at the beginning of our chat. You mentioned the Grand Theatre, so have you been in theatre all your life then?
Well, I tell you what happened. I was quite brainy as a child. Well, I managed to get in the first stream for maths.
Right.
Which meant I did my O-level maths in Form 4, so I did my additional maths in Form 5. So I actually sat my A-level maths in the first year, 6th, not the second year. I promptly failed it. I was doing physics. I lost interest in... they didn't. I didn't lose interest in that. They pleaded with me to give it up. And I lost interest in technical drawing because I was going to become a draftsman.
Really?
So during that summer holiday, I went to the Youth Employment Office and they said, well, what do you fancy doing? I said, and of course, typical disinterested teenager. I said, I don't know. And they said, well, what are your hobbies? I said, well, I like going to the theatre. Would you like to work in a theatre? I said, well, I suppose so. I don't think it would happen today. They got me an interview with the house manager at the local theatre. And he said, well, we're having a new general manager in a week's time. I'll have a chat with him and we'll see if we can offer you a place. And it happened.
Excellent.
I mean, I was a junior assistant, which they don't exist anymore.
No,
because nobody wants to have that title.
ASMs
now.
and things like that.
Yeah. So I started as a junior assistant in the office. I had about 4 weeks left of the summer holiday to see if I liked it. And if I liked it, they said I could stay. And if I didn't like it, I'd have to go back and knuckle under. I never went back.
What I'd just like to say is, from all of us at Creative FM, we'd like to thank you for allowing us to come into your theatre, and I hope this does some good eventually in raising some much needed funds. And I'm still pledging, if I win the lottery, I'll give you a few bob, don't worry. So thank you very much, Peter.
My pleasure. Thank you, Vic.